Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be playing some Hearts of Iron 4, and this first episode I'm going to use as kind of a how to play, just to help some of our newer players and people that might be thinking about picking up this game get more easily and quickly integrated into it. The developer of this game, Paradox Interactive, is kind of infamous for its low quality tutorials and kind of complex games, in a lot of places needlessly so. We're going to be playing France today, and the reason for that is because France has a fairly good navy. It's got a decently sized navy. I'd place it just behind the United States and United Kingdom. It's definitely larger than Italy's, it's definitely larger than Germany's, and it's roughly on par with the size of Japan's, if not the overall quality. In addition to that, it has a fairly respectable complement of land forces, a decent air force, and it's just all around a pretty decent nation to play, other than the fact that it gets mobbed by Germany pretty quickly in the game. But with any luck, I'll show you how you can avoid dying. Alright, so the most important thing in this game is going to be this tab. Now your national focus is whatever is basically the diplomatic or industrial or cultural initiative that your nation is focused on at any given time. Now every single one has a tree. Some of the nations, like the most of the major powers among the Allies, have and the Allies and the Axis have unique trees, like you see here. The French have a series of industrial initiatives that lead to some boosts for research if they can manage to survive that long. They also have a bunch of trees focusing on fortresses, expanding the Maginot Line, all that. And then more importantly for this playthrough, we have methods by which we can start to get rid of some of the penalties that we're taking, namely that we are the victors of the Great War, which is impacting our manpower. The French people are fed up with war. They've had their taste of it, had their fill, and they're not too keen on the idea of going to war with Germany again. What that translates to is it's very difficult for us to develop our doctrines, basically global bonuses for our army, and we have a penalty to manpower, which is the resource primarily used for building divisions. Beyond that, we have a low income of political power, which is used for diplomatic actions, and we have low national unity. And we'll get to the effect of national unity once a war actually breaks out. But for now, I'm going to go with government reform because it gives me a flat boost to political power, which I'm hoping will allow me to eventually recruit, let's see, this guy. As you can see, he has the silent workhorse archetype, which gives me plus 15% political power. It's a very good thing to grab early in the game, especially if you're suffering from any penalties, just because it kind of mitigates that issue. Now, the research tab, most nations, as you can see, start with 3 research tabs. Some of the minor nations only start with 2, and some of the larger powers, like the United States, Britain, and the USSR, have fairly quick access to a 4th slot, and in some cases even a 5th. We're kind of worried about that, so we're going to go ahead and research electronic engineering, just to get that boost to research time. And from there, we're going to go over here and start researching down the industry tree, because we're going to be doing some building here early in the game. If we don't have the manpower, we need to find other ways to supplement our power and not get overrun by Germany and Italy. Let's see. I always like to start out with a handful of civilian factories, just to explain what they do. Each civilian factory contributes to your overall ability to build things under the construction tab, whereas the military factories contribute to your equipment production, which is handled under the production tab. So for construction, I'm going to go ahead and build a handful of civilian factories. I'm going to do 3 there, and just kind of max out some of these regions that are in my central territory here. Now it looks like that's going to give me 10 more, and 10 more will put me at 45 factories total, which will allow me to conduct 3 full construction projects at any given time. Now let's go and have a look at our production tab. Looks like we've got some submarines building, but they're of an outdated class, so we're going to go ahead and find the more updated class. We don't really care if that's going to be putting them behind in production. Now we're going to set these to just build infinitely because submarines are just good. Get them to go even, or produce them evenly. I'm a little bit dubious about building destroyers and other things right now because there are probably better things our industry could be focused on, but you know. Alright, up here, let's see. I only have 6 military factories. Jesus. I have almost as few as Austria, Czechoslovakia, that group. France has been having a hard time. So let's go ahead and just say fuck off to motorized. We need more infantry equipment, just base. Now here you can see we have a resource deficit, and what you're going to want to do with that is click this button here. If that one's not appearing, you can click trade, and we're going to go to oil and find a nation that we don't hate who's willing and able to export oil. The United States seems like a good option. And we're just going to auto set the amount and click send, and that'll automatically balance that deficit. Now, I'm about to embark on a pretty lengthy campaign of moving a bunch of shit to the same tile, so stand by, and the reason that I do that is so that I can more easily organize and redeploy my forces at the start of the game. And if you're curious, the way that you do that is by selecting the fleet, control right clicking the port that you want them to be based in, and then right clicking the port to actually move them there. It's a little bit tedious, but eh. Now what I'm doing here is just going ahead and adding all of my overseas forces to a single army grouping here. And when I set this to garrison of territory, that'll have them all automatically move to it. That way I'm not having to manually move a bunch of shit from all over the world. As you can see there, everybody's moving. Now, I'm not worried. You might be wondering why I'm not worried about an attack coming the moment I move my whole army off the border, and the reason for that is this up here, world tension. In the absence of a casus belli, basically a war goal, not even the fascists can actually declare war. Like, they need to have a justification, or for the world to already be at a certain level of tension for them to declare war on you. So for the first few years, you're relatively safe. And just making sure everyone's moving. Now, for air forces, when you delete them like this, you're not destroying the wing, it's just going back into your overall air reserve. And you can just use them again later by deploying them to another airfield. This is also a really good way of taking stock of what you have available to you. Now what these mean are that there are battles going on inside of the fog of war that we can't see. Italy is at war with Ethiopia. It starts the game in that way. One of the few events that just cannot be avoided by any means. Just about everything else in the game can be averted. It is theoretically possible, note that I say theoretically, to avoid any wars past that one whatsoever. Alright, that looks like all of them, so I'm going to go ahead and speed the game up and just let everything move. I am playing on Iron Man mode just because I want to achieve a specific achievement. It is actually considered an achievement to have France last all the way to 1948 without you dying. It's almost like France loses World War II. Italy's not really making the progress I thought they would be making. That's weird. That'd be an interesting playthrough. Play Ethiopia, try to win. I might just do that. The odds seem a bit stacked, though. I feel like there's probably nothing in the game that accounts for Ethiopia winning, so the war would probably go on until the game ended, or Italy was ended. Like, you could occupy Somalia and Eritrea, but that's about it. And at that point they'd have difficulty actually getting down there, and once the war broke out you'd be safe, but it would still be weird. Looks like the vast majority of my land forces have reached France, so I'm going to go ahead and start organizing them. I like that I have 6 armor divisions to start out with. That's going to be helpful later. Not confident that I can support terribly many motorized divisions at this point in the game, so what I'm going to do with those is move them down and convert most of them to regular infantry of the line. Alright, and every now and then you're going to get a historical event based on what some of the others are doing. Now, you can try to start a civil war, or try to start a war with Germany over the Rhineland, but you wind up going to war with with your own powers, which is just not good. So you need to issue just a diplomatic thing about that, just kind of slap them on the wrist and say, hey, no, don't do that. But there's not much you can do about that happening at this juncture. Yes, yes. Hitler gonna hit. I'm gonna dedicate, I think, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 provinces I need to guard down here against Italy. So I'm gonna probably stick about 21 divisions on it. Just gonna go through here and delete some units. let's see, I want about 70 divisions for this border eventually. I do intend to start the war a little bit early, and I'm gonna have Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, and Romania be in an alliance with me against Germany. I'm gonna not go with the Allies. I'm gonna do what's called the Small Entente. And yeah. I'm gonna make sure all of them are at my actually good unit here, or my basically every division has a template that it's built off of, and basically governs its stats as well as the resources required to build and maintain it. Now, usually there's one version of the infantry division that's meant for just garrison duty. It doesn't have very many frills, and then one that's built for line duty, and that's what I want everything to be on, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and build, or go ahead and convert all of them to that, and I'm just going to have to eat the penalty for needing more military equipment in the meantime. Having only 6 factories is kind of a pain. But let's go ahead and show you how to deploy your army. So I've gone ahead and split off 24 units, and the reason for that is the maximum that a standard general can command without any penalties. I'm going to find me a good one, someone with entrenchment skill. I'm going to click this button right here, which is the front line button, and you just click and drag, and that is Switzerland. Anyway, you just click and drag, that's Luxembourg. It's a little bit unwieldy if there's multiple borders intersecting at the same point, but I'm going to go ahead and click and drag, and they'll move of their own accord. Now, eventually I'm going to put about 70 divisions on that border, because I just don't want to die to Germany, you know. Pretty simple. I'm actually going to get rid of my Alpine divisions because they're not really helping me out right now, and take the second 24 division group and put them on the border with Italy. I'm not worried about Spain. Spain's kind of, they have a civil war late in 1936, 1937, thereabouts. That takes them pretty much out of world events for the next decade or so. Why do I have 2 varieties of the tank division? Okay, let's see. I want them to all be Division Légère Mécanique. And I'm going to keep them as a reserve for some special projects later on. And yeah, so that's pretty much how you want to start out most games. Oh hell, come on. Alright, whatever, we'll get communist uprisings. And yeah, alright, so that's everything. That's my quick getting started guide. What I usually do with my Air Force is wait until the war is actually imminent, and then deploy them in squadrons based on where I need to. The way you do that is you just click the airfield, click create a new wing, and then you just allocate units how you want to. Like this would create a wing of 20 tactical bombers, for instance, that would then operate out of that airfield. So for instance, let's go ahead and establish a combat air patrol over northern France. Just waiting for them to deploy. You can see that there's a percentage deployment as the materiel flows in. Oh, what fresh hell. Oh, Spanish Civil War, what did I tell you? Yep, see. Alright, so the way you establish a combat air patrol is you select the airfield, click the wing you want, you right-click on the region, and then you select air superiority, and they will automatically carry out that mission over that region. This bar is the balance of power. If you're actually at war, it'll have your power on one side, their power on the other, and if your percentage of air superiority is over 51%, you're considered to have air superiority. And it's also a pretty good indicator of the proportion of losses. Both of you will suffer losses as long as it's an opposed or contested region. If you want to get in the fight early, don't play France. Otherwise you can send volunteers, which will actually allow you to command some of your own divisions fighting on the side of whichever side you decided to... I just said side a lot. Whichever side you opted to send divisions to help. And in the Spanish Civil War, I've found that about 4 to 5 armor divisions of light tanks can swing the war for either side. It's actually one of my favorite tactics when I play the Soviet Union, is to influence the result of the Spanish Civil War in favor of the Republican Spanish, which will generally cause them to join the war on the side of the Allies usually about 1943, 1944, which is a good way of getting an in on France without having to go all Operation Overlord on it. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope this was informative. Hopefully I'll be able to get a little bit of the naval stuff done in a later video, and some actual combat and tactics that I can go over throughout the course of an actual campaign, which should be next episode and onwards. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you like this, please subscribe and hit like. Maybe leave a comment, maybe get into an argument in the comments. That's always fun. And thank you for watching. See you next time.